Trapped in a hospital meant to heal her, Emma's cries for help were ignored, until one desperate text to her husband changed everything. But would it be too late? Emma sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the little stick in her hand. 2 pink lines. A smile broke across her face as excitement bubbled up inside her. She rushed out of the bathroom, waving the pregnancy test in the air. Ryan. Lily. Sophia. We're having another baby. Her husband, Ryan, scooped her up in a hug, spinning her around as their 2 daughters cheered and ran up to hug her belly. Another little sister or maybe a baby brother? Lily asked eagerly. Emma felt confident. She had done this twice before. She knew pregnancy came with challenges, but she had no doubt that everything would go smoothly. With her family by her side and a highly rated hospital nearby, what could possibly go wrong? The hospital Emma chose had glowing reviews. Other mothers spoke about how kind and gentle the nurses were, how they went above and beyond to care for their patients. That's exactly what Emma wanted: support, kindness, and proper care. Her first appointment with Dr. Bennett went well. The doctor was warm, attentive, and reassuring. She checked the baby's heartbeat, asked about Emma's past pregnancies, and even gave her advice on managing morning sickness. Emma left the hospital feeling relieved and confident. She had no idea that this would be the last time she truly felt safe in their care. At her next visit, Emma expected to see Dr. Bennett again, but instead, she was introduced to midwife Nancy. The woman was much older, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "I'll be handling most of your checkups from now on," Nancy said briskly, flipping through Emma's file. "Everything looks fine, no need to worry." Emma mentioned how severe her morning sickness was, how some days, she could barely eat or drink. But Nancy barely glanced up. "It's just pregnancy," she said with a dismissive wave. "It'll pass." Something about her tone made Emma uneasy, but she pushed the feeling aside. Surely, a trained midwife knew what she was doing. Right? 4 months into the pregnancy, Emma woke up in excruciating pain. A sharp, twisting sensation shot through her lower back, making her gasp. She tried shifting positions, drinking water, even taking slow deep breaths. Nothing helped. Ryan found her curled up on the couch, clutching her back. "We need to go to the hospital," she whispered through the pain. At the emergency room, a doctor examined her, ran tests, and diagnosed her with fluid buildup in her kidneys. He assured her it wasn't dangerous but needed monitoring. Before she left, he called midwife Nancy, explaining Emma's condition. Nancy promised to update Dr. Bennett. But she never did. At her next appointment, Emma mentioned her kidney issue to Nancy, expecting some kind of follow-up. Nancy gave a tight-lipped smile. "You're fine. If it was serious, the ER wouldn't have sent you home." Emma frowned. "But I still feel pain sometimes. Shouldn't we keep an eye on it?" Nancy sighed as if Emma was being dramatic. "You're just anxious. Your body is adjusting to pregnancy, that's all." Emma left the appointment feeling uneasy. Something didn't feel right. But what choice did she have? Nancy was the only one she could see regularly. After 5 months, new problems started. Her ankles and hands were swollen, her head pounded constantly. And she noticed her urine was cloudy. Emma wrote everything down, determined to bring it up at her next appointment. Nancy barely glanced at the list before chuckling. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Pregnancy causes swelling, headaches, and changes in urine. It's normal." Emma was frustrated. "But this isn't how I felt with my first 2 pregnancies." Nancy sighed and handed her a cup. "Fine, let's humor you. Go pee in this." Emma did as told. Nancy held up the cloudy urine, smirked, and said, "You have a UTI. No need for a test. I'll give you antibiotics." Emma hesitated. How could she be sure without testing it? But she took the medicine and went home, trying to trust Nancy's judgment. She shouldn't have. A month later, Emma felt worse. Her swelling had gotten worse, her head throbbed constantly, and she felt a burning pain while urinating. Nancy had ignored her again, so Emma decided to go to the ER. Within minutes, a real test was done. The doctor returned, looking concerned. "You have a serious infection. You need antibiotics immediately." Emma's heart pounded. If she hadn't come here, would Nancy have let this get worse? That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Something inside her whispered, "You are not safe in Nancy's care." Emma finally made a decision. She called Dr. Bennett's clinic and asked if she could switch back to seeing her instead of Nancy. The receptionist hesitated. "Dr. Bennett is in high demand, but..." "Let me check." Emma's stomach twisted. Would she be forced to stay under Nancy's care? Minutes later, the receptionist returned. Dr. Bennett agreed. "Your next appointment is with her." Relief flooded Emma. Maybe now, someone would finally take her seriously. She didn't know that more battles were still ahead. At her next appointment, Dr. Bennett listened carefully as Emma unloaded everything: the swelling, headaches, infections, and Nancy's neglect. The doctor's jaw tightened. "I never got reports about any of this." Emma's breath hitched. "You didn't know?" Dr. Bennett shook her head. "I gave strict orders for your urine and blood pressure to be checked." "That wasn't done." "No," Emma whispered. Dr. Bennett's expression darkened. "That should never have happened. From now on, I'll be handling your care personally." Emma exhaled deeply. Finally, she had someone on her side. By 7 months, Emma was exhausted. She told Dr. Bennett she didn't want to go any longer than necessary. The doctor agreed. "Let's schedule a C-section for August 16th. That way, we control the delivery and keep you safe." Emma nearly cried in relief. An end was in sight. But she had no idea that her hardest challenge was yet to come. The weeks leading up to Emma's C-section were filled with exhaustion and pain. She could barely sleep, her body ached. And the swelling in her hands and feet had gotten worse. But the thought of finally meeting her baby kept her going. Ryan did his best to help, but with work and taking care of Lily and Sophia, he was stretched thin. "Just a little longer," he reminded her. "Soon, this will all be over." Emma held on to that hope. She trusted Dr. Bennett to deliver Isla safely. She just had to make it to August 16th, she had no idea that what was waiting for her after delivery would be even worse. On the morning of August 16th, 2022, Emma checked into the hospital. The nerves hit her the moment she changed into the hospital gown. She gripped Ryan's hand. "Promise me everything will be okay." Ryan kissed her forehead. "It will be." The doctors prepped her for the surgery. As they wheeled her into the operating room, she took deep breaths. She could feel the pressure as the doctors worked, tugging and pulling. Then, at 7:48 a.m., she heard it, the loud, angry cry of her baby girl. Tears ran down Emma's face as they placed Isla on her chest. "She's perfect," she whispered. She thought her battle was over. She was wrong. After the surgery, Emma was moved to her hospital room. She was exhausted but happy. She expected to rest and recover with her baby by her side. Instead, the nurses made a terrible mistake. Ryan, trying to make Emma comfortable, brought her food and drinks. The nurses said nothing, allowing her to eat far too much for someone who had just undergone major surgery. Hours later, the pain hit like a truck. A stabbing, unbearable pain in her stomach. Then came the vomiting, violent, painful, and unrelenting. Emma sobbed as she curled up in agony. A nurse finally came in and casually said, "Oh. Yeah. You weren't supposed to eat or drink that much." Nobody had warned her. Her body was already weak, and now she was suffering because of their negligence. Despite her pain, Emma wanted to hold her baby. But each time she asked for Isla, the nurses refused. "She's in the nursery. We need to monitor her." Emma frowned. "Can I see her?" Only for a little while. Then we have to take her back. Something felt off. Why were they keeping Isla from her? When Isla was finally brought to her, Emma held her close, trying to bond with her. But after only 30 minutes, the nurses took her away again. She didn't understand. Why couldn't she keep her baby with her? Her heart ached as the room grew silent and empty. The next morning, the real nightmare began. A nurse checked Emma's blood pressure. Her expression changed. "We need to check this again." Emma sat up, concerned. "Why? What's wrong?" The nurse ignored her. She checked again, then hurried out of the room. Minutes later, another nurse arrived. "Your blood pressure is very high. The doctor is concerned." Emma felt a wave of fear. She had never had blood pressure issues before. What does that mean? What are you doing to fix it? Again, no answers. She lay there, terrified, as nurses whispered behind her back but never explained what was happening. Days passed. Emma's blood pressure remained dangerously high, yet no one seemed to be doing much about it. Worse, they continued keeping Isla away from her. Each time they took her baby, Emma felt more and more broken. She barely ate. She barely spoke. She was falling into a deep depression. The nurses were cold. They gave her no comfort, no explanation. They changed her food to a low-sodium diet without telling her, making her feel like she was being controlled. She felt powerless, voiceless, trapped. She wasn't just physically sick. She was mentally unraveling. And no one cared. On the fourth day, Emma couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking, and texted Ryan. "I want to jump out of the window." Ryan called immediately. "Emma, talk to me. What's happening?" She sobbed into the phone. "They won't tell me anything. They won't let me see Isla. I don't know what's happening to my body. I feel like I'm losing my mind." Ryan's voice hardened. "I'm coming. Right now." He wasn't going to let this continue. Ryan stormed into the hospital that afternoon. He demanded to speak to every nurse who had been assigned to Emma's care. The director of nursing gathered the staff. Ryan's anger burned as he looked at them. "Why is my wife being treated like this?" he demanded. "Why is she mentally and physically breaking down in this hospital?" The nurses denied everything. They insisted Emma was fine. Ryan wasn't having it. "She just told me she wants to kill herself." "You don't call that a problem?" Finally, the director of nursing relented. "We'll do a suicide risk assessment." They handed Emma a questionnaire. She failed every question. Only now did they inform Dr. Bennett. When the doctor arrived, she was furious. "I gave orders for her care. Why weren't they followed?" she snapped. Emma finally had an advocate. Dr. Bennett demanded immediate changes. Emma was given access to Isla whenever she wanted, proper medication for blood pressure and mental health, an actual plan for recovery. Emma, exhausted, finally felt hope again. On August 20, 2022, Emma was discharged. As Ryan wheeled her to the car, tears filled her eyes. The nightmare was over. When she got home, Lily and Sophia rushed to her, wrapping their arms around her. "Mommy, you're home." She held Isla close, breathing in her baby's scent. She had survived. But she would never forget. Emma's battle wasn't over. She struggled with postpartum depression, trauma, and anxiety. She started therapy, working through what had happened. She spoke out, warning other mothers. She refused to stay silent. Her message was clear: mothers know their bodies. Listen to them. Neglect can kill. Speak up before it's too late. Never be afraid to fight for your care. Emma survived. And her voice would help save others.